We'll get going. We're officially recorded. I will be forever remembered for this next presentation here, the market. So as we were talking a little bit, just our market's different than it's been for several years. I know as Chris goes over these numbers every month, it's a good deep dive and synopsis of what we see. But we're going to really jump into it. And specifically what I'm going to try to kind of air into, and I know we talk about it here in the agenda, is really going over what we say when someone asks us how's the market, right? It's the most common thing as a realtor that we get whether we're in the grocery store or talking to friends. They always want to know, what's the real estate market like? And it's suddenly an elevator pitch where we have to say something of value instead of it's good or it's slow or it's whatever it might be. We have to provide something of value in that. And the best thing to do is to be really familiar with our market and our market stats. And that is really what is the foundation for any sort of conversation you're going to have with people. So this first one, and I'm going to see if I can't reduce there we go. All right, I needed to move my little talking box out of the way. That way I could see all the numbers. So this first one is pretty similar to what Chicago Title is known for sharing, right? It's the whole entire high desert. So when we look at it, we have August and we have September of this year. So probably the most interesting thing that jumps out to me is we've spent the last 6 months, maybe since about March, kind of recovering from that little dip that we had the back half of last year. We got up to 420. If I remember correctly, 420 was our median sales price about May of 2022. We came down approximately 7 to 10%, and then we've since made that up. But now we're starting to see that adjustment. I would probably call this seasonality. September might be a little early to say seasonality, but I guess all the kids are back in school. Things settle in a little bit. And I would imagine if you look over every year in the high desert, if there's ever a bit of a slowdown in value, it probably starts in about September or October of each year. So our total houses on the market has gone up to 933. When we look at some stats from last year, you're going to be surprised at just how much that's adjusted since 1 year ago. Total homes sold is 373, and that's not bad when you think about total months of inventory. With 933 on the market, selling 373 a month, this does not look like a market that's in the process of a very large correction of any kind. We're still 34 days on the market, totally healthy number. And so let's dive into it a little bit further and see what else we got. All right, so this is kind of what I was speaking about. What are we going to do with this information and how are we going to present it? And as great as Mike Arias's report is, and then what he's doing, in my opinion, is he's looking at the information and he's sussing out something that's the attention getter, right? Everyone has to have something that makes someone listen to someone's full conversation or video on something. And for instance, he said a couple months ago, we're $3,500 away from the top, right? Which is, then I saw a number of agents, not just in CB, but other companies using that same talking piece. And that's interesting, but also I think we're all capable of looking at these numbers and finding something that's worth sharing every month. So creating a video, leveraging our marketing team, they're going to have all sorts of tools if you wanted to plug and play this into some sort of market update that you do, whether you're doing a video, if you got the confidence for it, or putting together postcards, you're door knocking with this information, you're attending Townsend Market and sharing this sort of information at your open houses or anything like that. All right, so let's get into our first of our many areas. So the first one's Adelanto. We're looking at number of sales from last year to this year, as well as listings and days on market. And what you're going to see in a lot of this is you're going to see the number of sales are going to differ a little bit just because each of these markets are somewhat of a small sample size. But you're going to see that the listings and the days on market that relationship is going to be pretty much consistent all the way through. So we have an increase in sales price, we have a decrease in new listings, and we have a decrease in days on market. Adelanto is all the way down to 19, which is quite low, right? As we know, with the total market having 34 days. These new listings are at 35, sold is at 28. You can see that relationship from last year and the percentage changes. Median sold price at 372.5, up from 365 last year, and our days on market have consistently stayed low in an area like Adelanto. This page goes way back. So I was noticing as I was kind of reviewing this information, you could see the relationship between the bright blue, the sold properties, and the light blue, new properties. Generally, there's always going to be more new properties than there are sold. So it's not necessarily a concerning thing to see that there's 454, I'm sorry, let's go to 2023, 300 listings and only 233 sales, right? As we all know, as people list properties, a certain percentage of them are up asking for crazy prices. They're way over what they could expect to get it sold for. They're kind of, I would say, with a sense of kind of greed, they're aiming for a big number. If they can get the big number, they'll sell it. If they can't, as we all know, they become an expired listing. So that relationship there for 2023 showing, the bright blue being smaller than the light blue, that's about normal. And when you look back, you could really see how crazy 2019, 2020, and 2021 were, because everything you listed sold. And there was even more listings at that time, right? That was really drawn and pushed by interest rates. And then this is a good little chart if you're working with a home buyer, whether they're looking for 1 bedrooms or 4+, what they could expect for certain price points and what sort of monthly payment they might have given their down payment. And some of the stark ones are a purchase price at $434, right, for the 4+ bedroom, doing a standard FHA. It gets you a nice healthy mortgage payment of $3,300 a month. That is still a surprising number to me. Okay, so Apple Valley, now we're starting to get our bigger sample sizes, right? Apple Valley and Victorville are our biggest of our 2 areas in terms of the amount of properties in those towns. So we're looking at number of sales down 43%, number of new listings down 30%. But with all that said, days on market is also down. So strange. You would think that with sales and listings being down, potentially our days on market could be up. But instead, as we all know, the people that are listing their homes these days are truly motivated. They're not doing it just to grab the 200,000 equity they have, because they don't really want to take their 200,000, roll it into the next home and have a mortgage rate at today's current interest rates. Now that's the negative. That's what's affecting all of us in our sales business. But the silver lining there is when you do get a listing, that person's probably very motivated. And in fact, they still sell in 33 days. So the value is still very much in taking listings, right? All right, this is that same chart kind of showing new listings to sold listings this September versus September of 2022. And then again, we see that relationship going down. But look at 2023 in that large dip in both new listings as well as sold listings. So essentially, the pie has gotten a little smaller for all of us. But I think those of us that know what we're doing and show up for work all the time are going to get a larger piece of that pie than we ever have in the past. So I've been speaking with Tony, as many of you know, he's been a coach of mine for many years, and he's like, this market, right, what we're in right now, what we can plan to do in 2024 is the exact sort of market where we can build market share. And building market share can be so important because not only is that helping us with today's cost of living and our other goals that we have in life, but it also means as we change out of that market into whatever's to follow, that market share follows us. So we can build our business in markets like this. It's very difficult to build market share in 2020 and 2021 when everyone's a new agent doing their first deal because everything's gone crazy because of COVID, right? So I digress, but all right, here's that same breakdown for Apple Valley 1 bedrooms to 4+ bedrooms. You can see it's the 555 mark to get a 4+ bedroom home. And a little interest rate thing there. Last year's interest rate 5.22. That seems like a long time ago. Today's current interest rate 7.07. And then they give last month's interest rate 6.84. So obviously we know that they're going up. We see them teeter back and forth a little bit. We're all looking forward to the day that they come down. But I think the best plan for us as individual salespeople is to know that this interest rate environment isn't going to change in the near term. This should be something here to stay for a bit. Maybe we'll get a little bit of relief in the election year. Typically, the existing presidential administration likes to make things rosy. So suddenly gas will get cheaper next summer. Interest rates will go down. But that might just be a short-term thing that we get to benefit from next year. But I would otherwise plan on 7%, 7.5% in that range is probably going to be the reality in our housing market for some time. All right, so to Barstow. Barstow, number of sales dropping. Now, again, let's build this on the understanding that this sample size is a little small, right? 37 to 17 with a drop of 54% sounds really stark, but new listings are only down 14%, and then our days on market have increased. So they've gone up 69% from 29 days to 49 days. But again, I would preface that with this is sample size. If you expanded this out over a length of time, the last maybe 3 or 4 months, I'm assuming Barstow's days on market is not 49 days on average. We have that full market summary here showing new listings and sold listings from September of last year to this year, median sold price, median list price. So everything is selling for, in this case, 99.5% of what it's listed for, which is so wild because our days on market have almost doubled from what it was a year ago today. So it just shows you the shortage of inventory is helping keep our prices up. It's really important to, when you speak with a potential seller today, to let them know that they're not going to have to leave a bunch of money on the table. As long as they're priced correctly, it will sell, and probably for pretty darn close to its list price. And then here's that relationship again with sold properties to new properties. I think where we're at in 2023, that those bars on your far right-hand corner is pretty healthy. That's pretty normal. It's just telling us realistically that all of the prior listings and solds from 2021 or 2020 through 2022, those people had different sort of motivations to sell than they do today. So we're just dealing with less motivated sellers. We just got to go out and find them. There's a breakdown. Turns out there's no 1-bedroom homes in Barstow, at least not that sold in August of this year. So it gives you a little bit of a breakdown there from 2 bedrooms to 4+. And now Hellendale. So Hellendale, I was wondering, I was hoping to see that really large sale that Team Roper Hernandez did, because that's bound to push up the numbers. I think that closed in September. But I guess we'll kind of see. It does say average sales price up 20%, so I bet you that big one was a large part of that. Okay, so we have, and is it in this chart? No, it doesn't look like it's standing out to me. Median sold price of $362, up from $344 last year. Still selling at 98.9% of what homes are listed for, which is great. These are all strong supportive numbers to let us know that we're simply just in a different market. We're not in a falling market. Here's that relationship between sold properties and new listings. And then here's a breakdown of the bedrooms through, oh, no 1 bedrooms in Hellendale either. Turns out people don't like the little ones. So 2 bedrooms to 4.5+. All right, Hesperia. So now we're getting a little bit more larger sample size. It'll paint us a little bit more of a clearer image of our market at large, right? Number of sales down from 78 to 66. I think that's totally par for the course and understandable. But the good thing, or the promising thing within that, is our listings are also down. And that could sound negative, but what I mean by that is at least our sales aren't down and our listings are way up. Then now we're going to see the pendulum swing and we're going to see our values drop. So the fact that our new listings are down in relation to our sales is a really positive thing. And then average days on market has come down just a little bit from 37 to 33 days. I know when I'm speaking with sellers, they'll ask, how many days does it take to get this sold when they're like fully committed to moving forward with the listing. And generally, I think if they're at the average sale price for the area, let's just use 420 in general, right? 420,000. If they're 420 and under, I think they're going to pace better than that 30 days, that 35 days. So they'll oftentimes end up under contract in, as you guys know, potentially 10 days, 3 weeks, something like that. Now, when they're north of 420 is where I really feel that average days on market comes into effect, especially, in excess of that, right? 500,000, 600,000. Now we need to let those sellers know we're probably 60 days, potentially 90 days on the market before it's sold. And that helps us get a stronger listing length. For instance, I took one this last week in Oak Hills for 735, and they wanted to know if I could just list it for 60 days just to see. And I really wanted to lean in and explain to them average days on the market, what it's going to mean for them at their price point. And that 60 days is a pretty small window. I mean, it could very likely go, but more than likely we're going to need more than that. So I did get the listing for longer than that, but sometimes you have to have that ammunition in your pocket to really know how to respond to someone when they say, how about 60 days, right? We have to be able to tell them at this price point, we're going to go higher than that. All right, so back to Hesperia. So median sold price, we're up, just a nice healthy number from 420 last year to 430. Average sales or list price to sold ratio 100%, 0.4. We probably all know that 0.4 is probably buyer's closing costs. I feel like every time something is listed for sale, someone stacks on $10,000 and gives me an offer and they're asking for 10,000 closing costs. I just had one of those this weekend. So that's probably what that number is, that exceeds 100% more than likely, but it's a good thing. It's a good, healthy number to show that our values are still strong and stabilized from a time this time last year where we thought we might just keep going down. And it looks like we already found that bottom, at least in this last little bit of the market. All right, and then here's the relationship between sold properties and new listings. Again, that 2022 and 2023 are pretty healthy relationships between the two of them. So that's looking pretty good. And then here's your breakdown between 1 bedroom and 4 bedroom. Really important chart to, again, share with buyers. This is going to give an idea, at least as a starting point. If they're just looking for a 2 bedroom, you can really quickly show them. Median sales price is $369. Here's what an FHA and here's what 20% down is going to mean in your mortgage payment. All right, so Phelan, this is the ultra example of small sample. I was thinking that these numbers might be shared with Pinion Hills. For any one of you working on a property in Phelan or Pinion Hills, I would just combine the two of them. Those of us from Pinion Hills like to say we're from Pinion Hills and not from Phelan, but realistically, it's pretty darn similar. Our comparables are the same. An appraiser is going to pull them up the same. So if you have a property in Phelan, they're going to go 5 miles in the radius, and a lot of that's going to end up being properties in Pinion Hills as well. But we got number of sales down from 17 last year to 11 this year. Pretty similar relationship in new listings, 26 last year down to 22. Yet our days on market have come down from 39 to 35. Average sales price being down 11%. I wouldn't put too much weight in that. A lot of that is just circumstance of what those 11 properties that sold were. Could have been a number of fixer manufactured homes, and maybe the month prior was the large custom 3,000 square foot Deserados that sold. So I wouldn't really say that there's anything particularly different going on in Phelan. This is just more a sample size circumstance. Am I doing all right on time? Yeah, all right. If I'm going too fast, by all means, I can repeat or chat about anything once we run through all these numbers. So median sold price, again, you can kind of see this 402 number here down from 420 of last year is just going to be a small sample circumstance. I wouldn't lean too much into that. In fact, we're still selling at 99.2% of what something was listed for. That difference between the 100.6% last year is pretty negligible. Again, a lot of that is kind of closing cost assistance asked for by the buyer. But anytime we're within 97% of the list price as an average sales price, it means we're moving right along. Prices or things sell if they're priced correctly, and there's some room for negotiation there, but it's not like they're selling for significantly less than what they're listed for. And here's the relationship between new listings and sold properties. And then the guide. I guess there was one bedroom in the Phelan area that sold for $300,000, and then they can go up to 590 plus. And I still have found that I used to think the upper end of the market really struggled in Phelan and Pinion Hills, but I found this year that stuff is still selling regardless of price. So I've done half a dozen of them or so north of 550 this year, and they still sell. They end up taking longer, so we have to build that into our sellers' expectations and into our listing agreement to make sure we have a long enough window to find the buyer, but they're out there. Okay, Victorville, now we're back to a good sample size. Number of sales down just 7%, 141 to 131 this year. New listings down significantly, 230 this time last year to 142. My belief is this time last year, September of 2022, we had a lot of sellers throwing it up, thinking that potentially this was it, that was the peak. Let's sell it, honey, and get out of Dodge, right? So I think that number of 230 is not normal. I think that was a lot of people grasping at straws and hoping to get a top end price for it. And as we know, the end of 2022, we saw those people pulling their homes off the market just because they ultimately couldn't get their price, or their, the heart wasn't fully invested in the process of getting that house sold. So 142 is probably very accurate for the amount of households that are motivated and ready to sell, whether they're sell and relocate or downsize or upsize. That's a pretty good number. And there again, our days on market is down. We're at 42 last year, which is probably some of the peak time that we've experienced in the last several years. 42 days on the market is not crazy, but we're back down to 32, and that looks really good. Our average sales price is up, and our average list price is up slightly too. Okay, so this is right there in line with about the market average, right? Last year, median sold price was 423.5. It's now at 430. List to sold ratio is 100.5%. So again, my belief is that that's people stacking on some closing costs, probably ultimately giving the seller a bottom line that's, maybe 97% of what they listed it for. I feel like that's pretty common, right? Someone lists for 430 and they get an offer for 440, but someone needs $12,000 or $15,000 in closing costs. That seems to be about the normal negotiation these days. Here's that relationship between, this one's rearranged a little bit. So the first one, we got 21, 22, 23 is approximately in the middle. And then you got the older years, 2018, 2019, 2020 on the right-hand side. So, I mean, that 2019, 2020 numbers, those are just crazy numbers to have nearly the same amount of listings as you do sales. And as we all know, that's COVID numbers. That's why our market was driving up 20% year on year for those years, because if you listed it, it sold. And nowadays, this relationship is a lot more healthy or standard when you look at that chart between the difference of new properties and sold properties. Here's a little bit of a buyer's guide, 1 through 4 bedrooms, as we've seen in the past here. And now we're going to go to, I believe this is the whole market, right? So number of sales per month. And this is good. So what we can see is we were peaking out August, September of last year. And then we felt a precipitous slowdown as we entered into the holidays. And then we kind of have come back through this summer and the beginning of fall with some pretty good looking numbers. Our listing count was driving up similarly to the sales. So I'm sorry, active listings. I'm sorry, I was thinking we were talking about solds. So on the left, active listing count was peaking last year. It dipped way down. It has come back, and same with new listings. Sorry, I was speaking over myself there. All right, so median list price peaked out in, for this case, they're saying June of this year. People are asking the most. We've come back down some. The days on market is a great thing to share with people, right? It got all the way as high as 81 days on the market in January this year. I remember pulling numbers last December, right around Christmas, just to see how abysmal it might be. And the sales were really bad in November and December of last year. So that's a reflection of why it went all the way up to 81 days in January. And then we kind of came right back to correcting in March and April this year. And we've been right in that healthy range since June now, 41 to 45 days. Totally doable. If we could just keep in that days on market, I think we could advise sellers accordingly and always be able to get them to list at the right price and get it sold in the right amount of time to get them onto where they're going. All right, so here's some large San Bernardino County numbers. So without saying the numbers, because there's just so many transactions, number of sales from Q3 of last year to Q3 of this year is down 19%, nearly 20%. Again, this is okay. This is part of us being able to jump and get more market share. New listings are down more than the sales are. So that's a promising thing, right? It's good to know that with the sales being down, that our listings aren't increasing. They've gone down a little bit more than the sales. So the value is in getting the listing. And days on market, pretty negligible. To go from 30 days last year to 34 days this year is still super, super healthy. Those numbers below are for condos. The good numbers, the sample size is going to be smaller. We don't have a ton of condos up here in the high desert. I would imagine many of these condo sales are down in the rest of the county area, but good numbers to know for anyone who's shopping for condos or potentially selling one. And then here's a bit of a snapshot. So this is a good graphic to share on a social media post. I need to figure out how to put my head floating in the corner talking about things. Maybe Robin can tell me how to do that, because this is the sort of graph that you'd want to share, or maybe a number of these slides. And that way you could talk through it and help people better explain what they're looking at. And then listing inventory and number of sales. So the black line is the number of sales, and then the blue bars are listings, right? So as we can see, our listings have slowly increased here since the first quarter of this year. Sales kind of came up in the summer. So you can see as it came up to that second furthest from the right, Q2 of 2023, we started coming back. And then this Q3 that we're in now, I feel like that is a bit of seasonality, and of course, the interest rate effect, right? So we have to just be mindful of that relationship between the amount of listings we have, what the interest rates are doing, and what those, how those two things work together. And then here's some San Bernardino County market update showing average median price of $495. So that's approximately what, like $65,000 more than what we have here in the high desert. That's about normal. Total unsold inventory is 3.5 months. It's smaller here in the desert. I think one of those charts was showing, but we're closer to a little under 3 months. And that's a good number, because we don't want to get north of 4 or 5 months. That's when we have to start having regular conversations with sellers about doing price reductions in order to get ahead of you know, too many other listings and needing to be the most affordable in the eyes of the buyer. And then San Bernardino Seller's Guide. Okay, so how long have you been on the MLS? All right, how many buyers pay over list price? How many sellers have reduced prices? So this is a great chart, another great one to speak on for people. And that way you get an idea of, you know, if you list it, this is what you can expect for days on the market. This is the likelihood that we might have to do a price reduction. All really good things to share with them. And then here's another good chart just for San Bernardino County altogether. Average active listings, the monthly average is 1756. That's down 22% last year. Sales are down 17.8 from last year, median price of $495. Sales to list ratio, they're saying 100%, right? That's pretty much what we've been talking about for a number of our areas. 37% of active listings eventually do reduce their price. So I always aim, I'm sure many of you do too, I want people to list at the right price to begin with. I really try to get them away from the let's list high so we can come down in negotiations. Once we get past that average days on market, 30 or 35 days, I tell them it can look a little stagnant in the eyes of a buyer who has all those resources at their fingertips to say, I've been staring at this house for 2 months and it still hasn't sold yet. So I often tell them we want to be right in the sweet spot, right? If the most recent sale for a home like theirs was 420, we need to stick at 420, 425, you know, small adjustments for condition, features, and upgrades. But otherwise, you know, it does not make sense if the model match sold for 420 and they want to list for 450. It's just going to hurt them in the long run, and we have to be able to educate them on that. And then here's a buyer's guide for the county, right? 1 bedroom to 4+ bedrooms, and what that will mean to them in the form of a monthly payment. Now this chart, active listings. Oh, so this goes way back. All right. So this is a whole chart of, and every different color reflects a different price point. So you can see we used to have a lot of pink. We used to have a lot of 300,000 and under listings, and now there's very few to speak of. But you can see that relationship since 2018. That's basically a lot of appreciation, and also just our listings coming down. So that's keeping our values strong and where they're at, and also letting you know that person that called and wanted to buy a house for 300,000 is slim pickings between them. All right, and then this is a sales and price report for 2023. In August for the state of California. So now the numbers are going to jump way high, right? If only we could have a median average sales price of $859, $800. But again, this is just showing really when you're speaking with someone how affordable our market is compared to the rest of California. And the market at a glance, existing home sales, median price. Yeah, so this is just another way to kind of give the numbers for the entire state of California. they're still selling for 100% sales to list ratio there, which is up 1.6% year over year from last year. So still strong. All right, so this is a quote. I don't know if this is Katie put this in or Chris. Most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. Great agents can explain what's happening. So I like to think maybe I'd be able to explain this pretty well in front of others, but our possessory knowledge of these numbers and these stats without being too analytical is just really important. We have to be able to share with them, here's what's going on in the market, and this is why it should matter to you. Instead of just being a talking track and not letting them get a word in, we have to ask them questions, and we have to answer those questions in a way that we could use this market information that we know to help best guide those people. So hopefully all of you guys spend a little bit of time looking at your market numbers, or just spending it once a month with Chris and sometimes with me, just to know exactly how that talking piece of yours needs to adjust month over month, right? Every month we should jump into these numbers. If you have a specific area, if you're really in a Spring Valley Lake or Barstow or Hellendale or Phelan or whatever the market might be that you focus on, it's good to just jump in the MLS once a month and do these same sort of numbers for yourself, so you know that you can just adjust what you're sharing with people when they ask you that infamous question, how's a real estate market? Our number of foreclosures at all-time low. Ironically, I have to follow up with a buyer this morning who's interested in a HUD home, and I haven't written an offer on a HUD home in like 10 years or something like that, maybe more. So that stuff is kind of there, but as you can see, there's a little foreclosure moratorium post-COVID, and then we have some foreclosures. But I don't think anyone's expecting to have a slew of bank-owned distressed sales in our market anytime soon. But when you see them, if you have any questions, in fact, we're running a class this week about HUD and REO. They run a little differently in terms of how you write an offer, how you communicate with the listing agent, how the negotiations go and the inspections. So if you're relatively new in real estate, only been licensed since after the last REO market, it's good to ask a veteran and see if there's any tips and tricks that they might have. And then we didn't expect, especially considering 7+% mortgage rates, was more new listings. So this is just kind of going on to say, like, as interest rates have gone up, I think everyone's kind of surprised that it slowed down interest rates, or I'm sorry, it slowed down active listings, which has helped us. If we had a bunch of inventory on the market as our interest rates also went up, we would definitely be seeing adjustment in our values. New listings tick up this month. Yep. So as we know, we're seeing a little increase in listings. I don't think it's anything to get overly concerned about. The value, in my opinion, is still very much taking a great sellable listing and making sure they're priced correctly. But we have to be able to have these conversations with sellers. I learn my adjustment, and then sometimes I wonder, oh, is my info a couple months old? Because now if someone's asking me how's the market, I'm telling them we are seeing our inventory climb up a little bit. So we need to be mindful of what we're being priced at. A little different than even July of this year, where it just felt healthy again and we could get a great price. But now we have to make sure, given that there's more competition on the market, that they're priced correctly so the buyer is most interested in their home, given that the buyer is going to be paying a 7 or 7.5% interest rate.
Yeah, I'm muted just to make sure I'm muted.
Mm-hmm. So 70% of mortgage rates are less than 4%. So yeah, that's a lot, right? So as we know, a lot of people have those great interest rates. That's affecting a lot of people's decisions in this market. If they don't have to move right now, they're probably choosing not to. And I think that's why there's ultimately less sales and less new listings than there have been in the past. They're probably kind of waiting it out. And what we're here to do is educate those people, but specifically focus on serving those that have to do something, right? There's a number of things that people have to move for, whether they're getting married, it's a job relocation, there's been death in the family, retirement, whatever the circumstances, people still will and always will sell homes. And we need to make sure that we're communicating with that group, because as we can see, a lot of people have less than 4% interest rates. And if they're not motivated to move one way or another, they're probably not going to, at least for the time being. All right, equity. So this is a little bit of a breakdown. Man, does Chris put a lot of slides together. This is giving you an idea of the total amount of equity that people have in their homes. And it's a lot, to say the least. So the average, national average, is 57.3% equity in the homes that they own. California is just a little tick under that at 47.8. So that's promising, right? That's also a reflection of why we're probably not going to get a slew of bank-owned and distressed sales, because on average, most people have an awful lot of equity in their homes. Empty nesters. So a big focus should be for the boomer generation. That boomer generation still owns an awful lot of real estate, and they're the ones that are able to move and make decisions, because if any one of these groups of age demographics happens to have the most equity or happens to own their house free and clear, it's empty nesters and boomers, right? As we all know. So those people can make decisions a little bit more freely, where your younger family that owns a home, if they bought at FHA a couple of years ago, they have a little less wiggle room in this sort of market to make decisions like moving. So empty nesters dominate as home sellers, and that's the group that we should be speaking to. Average days on market. So this has given us all the way back to January 2019. So we're seeing a whole bit of stuff here. We can see that it was starting to spike in January 2020. It's a little funny, huh? Because then it came way down, stayed way down. We had our little spike this time last year into the very early part of this year. And then we're back down to, this is showing 20 days. So pretty wild. Existing home sales. This has some big dips in it, doesn't it? So this is January 2014. You can see exactly where COVID happened, which is super interesting. And then you can see exactly where, December last year, January this year, where just the interest rates were causing people a lot of pause, and then we've since come back up. And now we're just kind of keeping our home sales moving forward. But we have to just be mindful of these numbers to know how many homes have been selling historically and what it means to that particular homeowner today. Sales of existing homes year over year by region. This gives you just a breakdown of the entire country. For me, I don't know if I could find any direct value to someone I'm working with today to share this with them, but it just gives you an idea of what's going on throughout the country. Change in sales price year over year. This is at different price points. So you're seeing the very affordable, 100,000 and under, and then over $1 million. So this is for the entire country, of course, because we don't have a whole lot of $1 million plus sales, at least not enough to reflect any sort of number there. Housing inventory. So this is months of inventory in the high desert. So September, so it's saying 1.8. So correct me, I was thinking it was like 2.5. So 1.8 is great. Really, I think anything under 3 is good and healthy. Once we get over 3, we have to make sure that the seller's expectations are right and that we're taking the listing at the right price to begin with, because the last thing you want to do is be day 91 on a listing and you only have a 4-month listing and the seller's unwilling to adjust their price down. And then months of inventory of homes for sale. This is just giving you an idea of how high it was. 2011 was still our distressed real estate market. So that stuff was incredibly cheap, and there was still 9.5 months of it. Mortgage rates, as we all know, here we are making historic highs. This is something not to be excited about, but it's just the environment we're in. We stayed in that 4, look at that, it dipped under 3, right, momentarily. And that's pretty incredible. But now we're in this market, and I think we will see this come down, but whether that's 6 months from now or 1.5 years from now, we need to make our decisions based on it being 7.31 today. All right, spread the word. So this is the call out for you guys to hopefully use this information, share it with people. If you're not big on social media, we all understand that it doesn't have to be all of our avenue, but we just have to be able to kind of embody this sort of information and be able to share with the public. It's what absolutely gains you business, because if in your elevator speech of how's the market, when someone asks you that, if it's not something specific and a bit of a call to action to someone, it's a bit of a soft interview, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves that. Someone at the grocery store says, "Hey, Wendy, good to see you. How's the real estate market?" They might have a motivation to do something or something. They might have a motivation to do something, but a lot of that decision might be based on how clear and concise and informative the information that you provide them is. So spread the word, share these sort of charts, speak with the people that you know, and this will help you win business in the fourth quarter of this year and going into 2024.